meaning they send the children to school, they have to pay the highest tuition because they make so much money. Most people make the decision based on fear.
But once you develop this type of mindset of being intentional of what you're doing, it affects every aspect of your life.
U.S. Embassy in Colombia canceled. See you. Bye. Now you come run after me.
However, it is important to recognize that Donald Trump is able to be Donald Trump because he's developed this confidence over the course of many decades.
I'm not changing anybody's life. I'm not changing anybody. I'm helping them bring out what's inside of them.
Give Jill the wisdom for your will.
Hello, Reb Sholom. How you doing? How you doing today?
Baruch Hashem, I'm doing delightful. How are you, Reb Chaim?
I'm doing very good, Baruch Hashem, and I want you to, if you can share again on the air. You just mentioned to me that you saw a post of me that it's not an uncommon scenario, so talk about it for a minute.
Yeah, you were just talking about the situation where the fellow who's earning 300 grand and is still living paycheck by paycheck. Now, 300 grand does sound like a lot. And in reality, if you're living in New York, and that's probably about what you need to earn to just get by. But still, your point is that you should be past the point of living paycheck by paycheck at that stage. And I think you're absolutely right. But what I was pointing out was it's not an uncommon scenario. It's not an uncommon situation to hear people, who are in this situation. We get so caught up with just trying to pay the bills and just trying to maintain our lifestyle. We don't get intentional about just sitting down and saying, okay, Ad Khan, I need to get a bit more in control of the situation. Which is, I think, a statement about life in general. We all kind of just fall into the cycle of life and not intentional about where we really want to be. But particularly in finances, it's very acute because that's where you really feel the pain.
I agree, but I'll tell you what, Reb Sholem, I always say that the worst people in America are the people who are making about $200,000-$300,000 a year. Because people who make little, at least they can have some government assistance. People who make $200,000-$300,000 a year, they have to pay so much in taxes and so much in the wealthy guy also in the school system. So meaning they send the children to school, they have to pay the highest tuition because they make so much money. And then it's the biggest rachmanas, I'm telling you. Yeah. You need if you want to be 100%, if you want to be able to afford your life normally, below $500,000-$600,000 a year is very difficult. I'm talking with a family with children. If you make $300,000 a year, you still have to be very frugal in order for you to make it in the long term.
For sure. But it can be done. I mean, I think that's the point you're making, is that there's no situation that cannot be rectified and it can't be sorted, but you have to be intentional about it. You have to decide.
Absolutely.
That's what you want.
Listen, if the Rebbeinu Shalom gave you this situation, that means it can be done. I find it too many people are rather interested in reasons why they are justified. I'm sorry, I'm going to use the word loser. They're not losers, of course, but a justified loser, meaning a justified failure or a justified unfortunate situation. They would rather find the people who are to blame for it than to find the solution. And I think that's the point that I was making in that post, on LinkedIn. And I'm getting now more messages than I ever got. People email me about their situation, about after reading the book, and they find themselves in certain. The book is meant to be information for some people, but for most people, it's a wake-up call. And they find themselves in a certain situation where they feel I speak to them. So when somebody in a situation when they feel that I speak to them, they have two options. One is to ignore it and say that Chaim Eckstein doesn't know what he's talking about. And one is to consciously think, is this me? Is this something maybe that I need to improve, that I need to do something better in order for me not to be another statistic or another story? And that's the reason I get a lot of emails lately. And this is, I'm just saying it because not everybody saw the post. It was on LinkedIn, so that's why I'm saying it. That somebody is emailing that he's making $300,000 a year and they can't afford, a whole list of issues. Like, can I know quite a few children also, and he can't afford this budget. And I'm talking about it on LinkedIn. Rabbi say, wake up. It's something that you have to, start taking responsibility.
Yeah, no, and this has always been your main focus. Since I've known you, has always been like, take control, be intentional.
Absolutely. Find solutions. Let's put it this way. It's very easy to say, this is Bashir, this is what meant to be, but that's not what you should do. Of course, if you see yourself that something happened and nothing you can do, of course, that was the roots in Hashem, and keep going. But if you still have an opportunity to change, if you still have an opportunity to do something to improve, this is your chiyuv v'shtadlus, to think about what can you do to improve the situation, and know that ba'azer Hashem you're gonna succeed. And you should. Most people make the decision based on fear. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. You should know that the Rebbeinu Sholom wants you to succeed, and go do whatever is in your power, wherever you have in your hands, knowing that you don't have anything. Lo iru kiyatu imudi. Don't be. You don't have anything to fear.
Right. And I think, and this comes up throughout the show, but I think it's worth mentioning again, which is, and it's not only are you going to find success financially, but once you develop this type of mindset of being intentional of what you're doing, it affects every aspect of your life. You become a better parent, you become a better employee or employer or an entrepreneur, whatever. The moment you develop an intentional mindset, you automatically see how that bleeds into every aspect of your life. And finance is a good starting point because it's finite. It's something that's, it's something that you can handle. It's quantifiable, whereas a lot of other areas of our life are much more gray. But once you develop that mindset, it affects every aspect of your life. So all I'm getting at, and I know it's come up throughout the show, but it's just worth repeating over and over again, is it doesn't just stop with finances. It starts with finances. And it affects every aspect of your life.
Absolutely. Something I wanted to share with you. I got a message from somebody yesterday. I don't want to say too much details for confidentiality, of course, but I'm going to try to mix up a little bit of information. A guy sends me a message and says, how can I ask something from Sholom Friedman? Because he listened to one of the podcasts and he thinks Sholom Friedman has the answer for him. So I told him, send me an email and I'll make sure to bring it up on the podcast. So he asked like this. He is working as a salesperson in a company somewhere for many, many years. More than 10 years, let's put it this way. And he's earning a beautiful income. But what's happening is that through certain situations, the company shifted owners and whatever happened, and it ended up in a situation that he's earning more money than his employer. And it's very difficult for his employer to see such a thing. But he knows what he put into this business for the last, I don't know how many years, and he's working very hard in the business. And he starts getting scared. Who knows if I have a future in this business? Maybe I have to leave because, I'm very limited how much I can make. If I know that my employer has a ayin toiva on me and he knows that, I deserve what I get, and I have no issue. But if I know that something like that can happen, that he's one day going to come, he's going to come maybe with an attitude of gam li gam lach lo yeh, not me and not you. Maybe it's something that he has to consider leaving. So he asks me such a question that I should ask it from Sholom Friedman.
Okay, well, I'm very honored that someone wants to ask me a question. But I think my general approach with any dilemma is to first identify, okay, so we know where you are now, we know the situation, but where is it that you want to be? What do you want the situation to be like? And looking down the road, what would be the ideal situation? Whether that means staying within your present position and coming to some type of arrangement where the threat or concern doesn't exist, or maybe it means it is Taka, it's time to move on. But that has to be clear. Where do I want to be? And then, as we spoke about last time, reverse engineer. So then we know where you are now. We know where you want to be. Let's discuss what obstacles are getting in the way to get there and identify the problems, the issues that have to be addressed. Let's identify the resources that you have to indeed address them. And then let's make a work plan of how to actually implement that. But again, it's about identifying, first recognizing where the situation for what it is and understanding, if it's workable, if it's not workable, you have to know, which will then determine your ultimate goal of where you end up seeing yourself. Again, but with that in mind, of course, there's going to be obstacles in the way. So let's identify those obstacles and analyze them and figure out what we have to do and what resources do you have to make that work, and then create a plan to implement that. I mean, I think that's generally the tried and proven method when dealing with any dilemma. And it's a very simple 4-step process, but it's that key to intentionality that you're always talking about. The importance is to take control, to take ownership of the situation, and don't allow it to take control of you.
Okay, I think you said it very well, but I want to elaborate a little bit on a few things that you said. And by the way, I'm not going into any political conversations here, but I think one of the reasons I love when Trump becomes president. I loved it 8 years ago, and I love it even more now. And besides the policies, let's not talk about it, but the fact that I get free business coaching for 4 years. That's the number one reason why I love it. Okay, for selfish reasons. Okay. And one of the things, I read the book The Art of the Deal a very, very long time ago from Trump, and I watch him how he makes deals, and I'm blown away a lot of times. And I'm bringing this up because I think this could be very relevant to the conversation for this young man. And the one thing that is very important when you do a deal, when you negotiate anything, so party A wants something, A, party B wants B. So it becomes a negotiation. Who's gonna win, who's gonna lose. This is how most people look at it. Right. Of course, it's not the right approach. You have to always try to find a win-win situation. How can both win? But sometimes you're dealing with people who are not realistic. Right. And they have unrealistic expectations of the other party. So it's very hard to find a win-win with such people, because in their mind they think that if I win, he loses. So it's very hard to negotiate with such people. So what I see Trump is doing every time when he negotiates anything, the first thing that he does, he puts himself in a situation where you need something from me very badly. If you need something from me very badly, then we can negotiate. Okay, you need this? Okay, you give me this, I can give you this. An example is the flight that was that Colombia didn't let the immigrants land. And I would have expected when Trump would hear such a thing, he would say, no, let's talk and let's this, let's that. No. Okay, tariffs, visa cancellation, US embassy in Colombia canceled. See you. Bye. Now you come run after me. So he until now Trump wanted the illegals to get to Colombia, and now, yeah, I want that, but you want even more to take off the tariffs and to not penalize me in all the other areas. And now we can talk. Okay, you do this, I do this. If you don't do this, I don't do this. So when I look in such a situation, as we're discussing the subject that we're discussing, I think the first thing that this young man has to work on before he even starts negotiating, before he even starts to have any conversations with the employer, is to have a very, very strong base, have a very strong footing. He should know exactly what am I doing, what is my strong points, what is it that the business needs me so much, how can I be indispensable for the business? And when I say indispensable, I mean it in a healthy way, not because you're a control freak, but you add so much value that there is no way in the world that a business can afford to have the business going on without you. If you can do that, even if you're going to leave the business, you're going to be invaluable for the next business. So if you do such a thing, I think it's gonna increase your negotiating power, and it's not gonna be only about how much do I pay you, how much do I lose by paying you, can I have it for cheaper, etc. It's gonna be yes or yes, basically. So what do you think about it? I think this is a very strong way that she should focus, at least for the time being. Until he is ready for negotiation or until he's ready for this next steps, this should be a very strong thing that he should focus on.
Absolutely. And I think that it boils down to having confidence, developing your self-confidence. And self-confidence doesn't mean telling yourself how great you are. Self-confidence means recognizing what you bring to the table, what your value is, and being able to articulate and identify how your value plays a role in whatever situation you're in. But not only recognizing that, but internalizing it, believing it, feeling it. I think that's what you're touching on. And I think confidence is one of the hugest players in any situation. I deal a lot with people who are looking for jobs, and I've researched it. And one of the key issues that people have when they're having a difficult time getting a job is because they're just simply not confident in what they have to offer. And if you're not confident, then why should an employer who's thinking about investing in you feel confident? Like, you haven't sold me on you yet. If you're not sold on yourself, how can you sell yourself to me? And we forget that step. And I think that's when I mentioned initially, know where you are now and then know where you want to be. I'm including within that this element of confidence for sure. I think, however, it is important to recognize that Donald Trump is able to be Donald Trump because he's developed this confidence over the course of many decades, and he's also had situations that allowed him to be able to develop these skills, which not everybody has. So this is maybe where some coaching comes in, because everybody's different. Everybody needs to be, everybody's got their own individual context and situation, and therefore one blanket rule isn't going to cover all. I think that's a yesod that I think we all need, and I think no one would disagree that we all need confidence. But how to gain that confidence and what do you do with that confidence afterwards is really more of an individual situation per person. And one thing you don't want to do is convince somebody that they have to really be, like the school bully. You convince yourself, I'm going to go and I'm going to beat him. I'm going to beat him up back. I'm going to hit him back. The problem is he's 2 times your size.
No, usually when somebody does that is because the lack of confidence.
But of course, I'm saying you as the victim, just because you now have confidence in yourself that you're going to swing back at him, that doesn't make him any less than 2 times bigger than you and a lot stronger.
Right, absolutely. You remind me. Somebody once came to me and told me, Chaim, I don't know what to do. My employer wants to fire me. So I asked him why. He said because he is this and he is that, and he gave me a whole list of how bad the employer is. So I asked the guy, let me ask you a very open question. I hope you don't mind, but be honest with me. If you would have been your employer, would you fire you or would you keep you? And he said, yeah, you're right, I would have fired me. So what do you want from your employee? He's just doing what you would have done.
Right. But very good. But I think back to your point, Chaim, and I think this is so crucial in every discussion. But developing confidence is probably one of the first steps in being able to get over that fear that you talk about.
But how? How do you develop it?
You took my question out of my mouth. So how do you develop, not how do you get over the fear, how do you develop confidence? That's my question to you. What is there an equation? How do you make it click? How do you make it happen?
You're asking me?
I'm asking you.
Okay, listen, we can talk for hours on this, and it's not because I have all the solutions, because I'm also struggling with the same thing. I mean, I'm struggling on it differently now than I struggled 20 years ago. 20 years ago, I wouldn't be on a podcast. 20 years ago, I wouldn't speak in front of an audience. But I want to tell you something. As long as you're going to live, if you're going to keep improving, you're going to have fear. You're going to have fear to go to the next step. Always. It's not going to go away. Maybe you will be trained better how to deal with the fear. Maybe you will. It will be, it's a different style. The fear that you have not being able to speak to people is a different fear than you have of, speaking to 10,000 people instead of 100 people. It's different styles, but it's also something that I heard Sean Hannity asking Trump in the interview of not long ago. He asked him, how do you deal with it? You had so much heat. They try to destroy you. They try to kill you. They try to do this, that. How did you survive? How did you manage to get back in the Oval Office? And Trump answered something that was fascinating. And he said, you know something? I don't focus on that. I just focus on what I need to do. And I do what I need to do. Most people, the focus that they have is in the fear and what can't I do? What will go wrong? What might go wrong? What if this? What if that? And a whole list of things that they're focused on the fear, and because of that, they're very limited where they can go. Versus if you focus on where you want to get, this is where I want to get, and this is what I need to do together. Yeah, it's scary. Yes, it sounds scary. It's not scary. Is it scary? I mean, think about so many things that you do now, and I'm talking you. I'm sure you also have stories like that. Definitely, I have stories, and I'm sure everybody who listens to this has some stories. Think about certain things that you do now, and you succeed with it, and a certain period of your life, it was scary. You didn't think you're going to get there. You have stories like that?
Of course, 100%. And if I could just interject for a moment, I'll share with you my thoughts, because I put a lot of time and effort into thinking about how to help people develop confidence, because it plays such a big role in the work I do. And one of the things I've discovered is,
But Shulam, I know you have the answer. Why did you say that you don't have an answer?
because I think you have
Because
better
you wanted
answers.
to give it a cover to me?
I think you have better answers. But I'm happy
So
to
I have
share
to
my
work on
answers.
your confidence.
No, it just means I recognize you for your value. That's all, and that's okay.
Okay, I appreciate it. But based on what I know, you know what? Let me be quiet. Let me listen to your answer.
So one thing I've thought a lot about is one area or one job that people really demand absolute confidence is in sales. A successful salesman has to be so confident about the product that they're selling that no matter what, and you have to be prepared that out of every 10 sales pitches you're making, 9 are going to be rejected. But you have to have such utter confidence in that product. When I was a kid, we used to still have door-to-door salesmen. So I remember when they would come trying to sell encyclopedias or vacuum cleaners, and sit down with my mother. But these salesmen didn't say, I have a hunk of plastic and metal that when you connect them all together and run some electricity through it, you have suction and it vacuums up your carpet. That's not what they were selling. They were selling a beautiful, clean home. They were selling pride that you could have people come in and your house will be so clean and it's going to be so sparkling and your carpet's going to be so, because back in those days, everyone had carpet. Your carpet's going to be so, clean. They were selling something to my mother that was beyond just the product. They were selling a value, and they were so confident in that value that no matter what you asked them, you couldn't convince them otherwise because they believed in it. And the encyclopedia, they weren't just selling stacks of paper that were bound, into a book. They were selling to my mother, you want to bring the world to your children? You want your children to learn all about everything that's possible? Right here in my hand is the key to teaching your children about the world. So they were bringing value, and they were so absolute confident in it that no matter what questions my mother had, they're easily answered because they knew it back and forth, and they felt so strongly about it. They knew their product, and they knew the value that their product brought, and that's what they were selling, and that's what they were focused on. And I just find that when it comes to developing confidence in ourselves, at the end of the day, life is full of sales pitches. If we're looking for a job, if we're dealing with a customer, if we're dealing with our employer, if we're dealing with our children, we're making a sales pitch. Rabbanim have to make sales pitches all day long. They're selling Torah, they're selling Yiddishkeit. But in order to be successful, they have to be so confident in that value that that's what sells itself. we have to do the same for ourselves. We have to view ourselves as a commodity, as something, as something that's we're a product in and of ourselves. But it's up to us to decide do I recognize the value of who I am, of me as a product? And if I really recognize that value, do I feel strongly? Am I passionate about that value? And I want to share that value. And no matter what you throw at me, it doesn't change who I am. I know my value. I know what I have to bring. It might not be something valuable to you, but the value I bring will be valuable to somebody else. And I always refer to that salesman type of mentality, and but we have to apply it to our own selves. How do we develop that self-knowledge of who we are and what value we bring? There's tools to do that, and there's very reliable tools. But at the end of the day, they're tools. But it falls on us to say, you know what? I am who I am. The Rebbeinu made me unique, and I have special value that nobody else has. But more than knowing it, you have to believe in it and feel passionate about it. And that only comes through recognizing and becoming aware of it, self-knowledge, and recognizing it, and being able to internalize it and appreciate it, which of course takes time. But when you focus on that and you recognize that what value you bring, then nobody can convince you otherwise. So he doesn't recognize my value, but it doesn't change who I am. And like I said, there are definitely vehicles and tools to use that can authenticate that value. So you don't have to be concerned. It's just in your own head. But nonetheless, the point is we have to be salesmen for ourselves, and we have to recognize the product we have.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a very, very important first step, but it definitely doesn't end there. You also need to be able to communicate it, and not everybody has the communication skills for that. That's number one. But my Rebbe used to always say, if it misses Asbura, it misses Avuna. So it's definitely number one. But number two, you need to be able to communicate, and it's also something that you can acquire. If you don't have the communication skills, you can acquire the communication skills. And then the other thing is the imposter syndrome. Some people think that, what am I bringing? I know the value I have, but they assume because it's so natural to them, they assume everybody else has it.
Right.
And it's also something you have to realize. I just want to share with you, I was in the life insurance business for a very long time, and they used to say that whoever can sell life insurance can sell anything. Because, you have to talk to people about dying, and then it's a very hard sell. The first book I read, besides the book of the life insurance exam and all the licensing I needed to get, first book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. That was my first book. I probably read it 6 times. And I think it helped me a lot.
Sure.
I don't think I was born with good communication skills. I have it now, I think, to a certain degree for some people. For some people, probably not. But I'm trying very much. You talked like 3 minutes now. I was quiet. You saw that, yeah?
You did well, yeah.
Yeah. But my point is that it's something that you can train yourself. If it's something and it's worthwhile. If you really want to grow in business, the truth of the matter is, in any area of life, as you said, with your children, with your wife, you want to sell something to your wife, to your children, to your partners, to your employees, to your co-workers, it doesn't matter, to your friends. You have to be able to speak. But especially in business, the highest paid positions in companies is for people who know how to communicate.
Absolutely.
It's the biggest, the hardest commodity there. It's very hard to find somebody like that.
And not everyone is a natural communicator. And there's, again, like with everything, it's a skill, and it comes out. And like in my end of the work, I oftentimes have to help people to write their resumes and prepare for interviews. In other lines of work, you have to learn public speaking. You have to learn, there are people who are coaches in communication. One great way to develop confidence in yourself is indeed through public speaking. And there are opportunities out there that you can join organizations that give people an opportunity to develop their public speaking skills. But if you can speak publicly well and convey a message within the few minutes that you're allotted, you've reached a level of communication that most people haven't.
Absolutely, and it's all attainable. You can I spend a lot of money and time to improve my professional speaking skills. And I once asked my coach, my speaking coach. I asked him, I see that you're changing people's lives. So many times I see that you're changing people's lives. How do you feel about it? He said, no, I'm not changing anybody's life. I'm not changing anybody. I'm helping them bring out what's inside of them. So the people who come to me have it inside of them. Otherwise, they wouldn't have come here. They have it inside of them. I help them bring it out. I help them become who they are. I don't show them how to change. I show them how to not have their skill buried.
Right.
Buried in them.
You're a facilitator.
Exactly.
You're facilitating their own.
Exactly. Okay, Gewaldig, Reb Sholom, it was good to see you again. And by the way, I don't know if people will realize that I can hear in your voice that you have a cold, and you still made an effort to come.
Yes.
And it's very appreciative. And Yefir Shalayma.
I'll be okay, Mirza Hashem. Go ahead.
Kaltev.
Get Jill the wisdom for your well. Give Jill the wisdom for your well.